Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Law and Finance Show. And today we have another great guest on because one of the things that a lot of lawyers really run into pretty much a lot of heartburn and headache about is, understanding what's going on with taxes. Some of them are very surprised when they go from just being an associate to, becoming a partner to where it's like, wow, I wish I would have known about these tax implications that I just stepped into. And so I wanted to bring on a guest that can really help shine some light on some of those questions and some of those topics that she's been helping a lot of lawyers kind of navigate and answer. Because when you can get a little bit of clarity beforehand, it is always great to go in with your eyes wide open. So stay tuned for today's episode. So without further ado, let me bring on Lisa. Welcome to the show. Or welcome back to the show.
That's right.
How
Thank
are
you.
you today?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. And I am very much looking forward to this conversation because I do think there are a lot of things to talk about in this space. But before we do, for those that may be meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I am a tax accountant. I call myself a tax advisor and educator. I've been doing taxes for 25 years. I worked at the big firms, and then I started my own practice 20 years ago when my children were born. And it focuses solely on individuals and small business owners, people with K1s, law partners, investment capital partners, real estate investment partners. And it's more of a boutique type of practice. So a lot of hands-on educational help. I'm not a tax preparer. My clients call me every day of the year. So I'm really like, let's just be real. Tax season is not the most fun for anybody. I like teaching people. So that's where I'm at. And I'm based in Chicago, but I have clients all around the US.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I will say is, we're pre-recording this, so at the time that we're recording this, is what just after Labor Day. It's kind of what early September. So with some clients that filed for the extension, kind of October, do you end up working a lot with clients in that, or are you not as affected by the extensions?
Oh no. I mean, and it's interesting with lawyers, most every single one of them is on extension. There are very few firms that get their K1s done on time. And that's one of the things that's usually a unpleasant surprise for a lot of people when they make partners. It's like, well, I've always filed on time. And I'm like, it's not going to happen right now. And then the whole estimated tax thing is a big thing. But I try very hard if someone has all of their information to get it done, because there's really no benefit to me to put it down and pick it up. But because of the type of clients I work with, quite a few are on extension. So I try and stay on top of them throughout the summer. So I'm not doing them all, the end of September. But unfortunately, sometimes the firms just don't get the information to us.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And I think that's the really good point that you bring up because, I wonder if a lot of lawyers understand that, like, when they make partner, like, your tax situation isn't just what you've been getting each month. Like, there's a whole new piece you have to factor in. And it's like, how many of the lawyers that you work with when they make partner are like surprised by that?
99% of them. I mean, and it's unfortunate, but it makes sense. I mean, there's no one within firms that has a tax background to explain it to them, which is why I've been coming in. Well, I've been working with attorneys to explain how cash flow and taxes change before they make partners. So I try and reach out to associates or alumni groups, bar associations to help them do that, so that they have the information while they're deciding if they want to go up for partner, because not only do your taxes change, but your cash flow changes. And if you don't have your stuff, organized before that happens, it's just a lot thrown at you financially and work wise when you make partner. I have quite a few conversations because I have some firms that are like, oh, you made partner, call Lisa. I'm working to try and move that earlier in the process. But like I said, there's no one within the firm that has that, and they're not allowed to give tax advice or education. So there's definitely a void there that really would help a lot of people.
Now, were you before you started, focusing on working with lawyers and, working with law firms, like, were you surprised of how big of an issue this was, or were you surprised that, like, hey, there
No,
weren't that many people helping in that area?
no, because I've always worked. I have clients at every income level, but I have a lot of corporate executives, professionals, high net worth individuals, and no matter where you're at, unfortunately, we are taught practically nothing about taxes and finance. So it completely makes sense to me. I mean, if you look at law school, they are taught, how to interpret the law. They're really not taught about the finance and business part of being in practice. So, because of my experience, I mean, when I was at one of the big firms, our department, which was the personal financial services, we did the partners' tax returns at our big four accounting firm because they wanted to make sure they were done right. And everyone was like, well, don't the partners at that big firm know it? I'm like, do you think a mergers and acquisition partner knows how to do his personal taxes? Oh, do you think a state and local tax? They don't know. I mean, people are very focused on their own things. So I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about everything I do with taxes and tax education these days because people aren't taught any of this. And it's like consistent, and people are so stressed out about it. And I'm like, I can come in and help people ease that stress. It's fantastic. I love
That's one of the things that I really loved about, some of the conversations that you and I had before about this, because one of the things that I find, like, I'm a CPA and I understand tax, but we focus more on bookkeeping and CFO services. But what I often find is that, lawyers are frustrated because they've either been paying someone to do their taxes, but that person has never actually been able to explain it in a way that they understand. And so as you start to work with more of your clients, how do they usually respond when you're finally able to, like, break it down in terms that they can
it.
actually start to say,
They
okay,
they love
that
it.
makes
I mean,
sense.
I am telling you, people are so appreciative. I mean, they are sort of like, no one ever explained that to me. I mean, I get people with the W-2 and I'm like, do you know what all these numbers are? And they're like, I have no idea. Like, why is box one so small? I'm like, well, that's a good thing. I mean, they literally like, well, I'm taking out the most on my W-4. I'm like, the most is your entire paycheck. Like, there's just such that. So when people, I mean, I get people seeking people like me out. Apparently, I am a not that common type of tax advisor. There's lots of tax preparers, so they just chunk out returns. But people want to understand what's going on with their money. They don't want to work forever. They don't want to pay, and especially when you work with like law partners, they're paying self-employment tax. They're paying their own health insurance. I mean, their tax rate probably 50%. I kid you not, it's 50%. So they're working hard. They're taking on half of it. I said, you got to understand how it all works so you can make good decisions so you don't have to work forever. And they're just like, wow, nobody taught me that. Nobody taught me. And I'm very non judgmental. I try and keep it really light and fun. And they're like, oh, I felt so stupid. I'm like, you shouldn't feel stupid. You weren't taught it. I'm like, I don't know how to interpret the law. I mean, like, it just, people like, oh, well, I don't know. I'm like, you can ask me. I mean, literally, people ask me anything and everything. I mean, I literally get counting on speed dial and I get calls and emails daily, which is why I purposely focus just on individuals, partners and that, because the tax laws change so fast that it's like I am on top of those things. I don't want to do these or that or different. I mean, even within individuals, there's industries that are very different, and I'm not on top of those. Like clergy, for example, there are special things with clergy. I'm not on top of that. So you should go to someone that specializes in what you need help with. And I think people are finally figuring that out. The money, especially these days when they're losing money in the market, I think people are paying attention like, oh, I'm not a cost, I'm an investment. You know what I mean? Because it will ultimately save you time, money, headaches in the long run. It's such, people are like, oh, I'm like, it's not an expense. It's an investment. And if you think about it like that, then you're like, great. I mean, I was listening to a podcast this morning and they were talking about customer service and people were like, oh, it's an expense. I'm like, no, it's a revenue generator. If you have good customer service, people are going to tell other people it's going to, it's going to pay for itself. And the same with this. I've saved people more than they've paid me many, many times.
Awesome. I mean, I think that's an amazing way to look at it because even myself and, over time I've realized like I usually try to set aside at least, you know, you know, 4 hours every other week at some point to really go back and look and see, okay, all right, who are my experts in different areas? Like, who are my experts in this tax area or that tax area? So it's like I keep those relationships healthy so I know, like, hey, when a person has a specific question, like, hey, I can give you general direction,
Mhm.
but you need to have a conversation with this person. And I kind of get the sense, even with some of the law firms that I work with, where the attorney is usually working with someone who just cranks out tax returns.
Mhm.
They don't really understand the uniqueness of a lawyer or a partner. They're just a tax house that just cranks out tax
Mhm.
returns. And I'm like, you're probably not getting the best guidance that you can.
Right. And if you think about it, I mean, law, they each specialize in pretty narrow, areas. Well, the same with accountants. Like, why would you just go to someone that can do every kind of return or whatever? If you have certain things, you should work with someone that works with those kind of people. I mean, people invest in a lawyer. I mean, they could say an expense. Well, they'll save you from headaches later on if your contract's written right or your estate plan is written right. I mean, it's the same mindset. So that's why I like working with attorneys because on the whole, they're like, yeah, totally worth it. I mean, they get it. And I
Oh,
mean, I work with so many, and I mean, my friends all like, I get what their concerns are, and I'm like, hey, just so you know, have you thought about this? They're like, oh.
now, when you talk about, working with attorneys, and I know we started off talking about some of the uniqueness about, going from associate to partner. When are working with attorneys, is there a specific, like say, like point in their career where you think like, hey, even if you're not ready to work with Lisa, at least start having a conversation, or whether it's paying attention to some of the, whether it's content or blogs or any articles that you write?
Well, personally, I think, if you just have a W-2 and you have a house or whatever, like, you could do your own tax return. Um, But to me, the tax return is like the least important part of it. It's a very reactive document. I think it's all the conversations during the year. So whether you're a partner or not, you still want to plan for your money and your taxes. Maybe you have kids, you can do stuff, or you have other investments. So personally, I think everyone should, just like they have a doctor, whatever. I think an accountant is a really important part of your personal support team. However, I have been trying to hit associates maybe a couple years before they have to be up for partner, because that way I can explain how being self employed, how investing in the firm, how cash flow, how insurance, how all this stuff works, so that they have time to say, hey, yeah, I really want that partner lifestyle. Let me get my finances in a row before I make partner. Or, ooh, you know what? I don't know if that's going to work for me. If I'm going to be self employed, maybe I want to start my own practice, or maybe I want to go in house, or it just gives them information to make a decision and look inside. So I would like to do it, I earlier, a couple years out, because otherwise they're already in the thick of it. And I think, you and I see this even through people we know on LinkedIn, is that more people are leaving big firms. I mean, I was at a big accounting firm and I left because it's a great place to get your feet wet. But, understanding, I mean, I remember working with the partners at our big firm and they're like, why am I making less money? I made partner. I'm like, oh, yeah, for several years you're making less money. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, you have to look at it beyond today. You have to look at it through your career. Do you want to stay because the payoff is here? It's not here necessarily, and unfortunately lawyers are known to have lifestyle creep, so they don't always have that reserve that they need, and so
Mhm.
then they have the time to get everything in order, so there's less distress about when they actually become
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you bring up about, just the financial stress that, because I don't think people plan for that, because most people, when they look at it as, hey, I'm gonna make partner, meaning my lifestyle is gonna upgrade immediately, and I'm gonna just step into this much
partner.
better situation, and it's just like, that you might be surprised.
Oh, it changes a lot, a lot. And it's not a bad thing. It's just if you don't know that it's coming, it's like with your tax return. Nobody likes a surprise. It's like if you know it is, but I mean, the firms unfortunately do not offer this. That's why I'm trying to get in the door to more of them. I mean, I'd like to just be in there and part of their education process, for associates as they educate those associates is that, or even just some basic personal finance on spending analysis, other stuff to help them not get in that lifestyle creep so they don't get stressed out, so they're more focused at work. There's just, because they're so busy working and then they're going out to eat and they're doing this, and like, yeah, they could be earning a lot, but they're not saving it. And they're not even aware of where they are. So when I go through and do an exercise of like a spending analysis or net worth, they're like, oh, wow, okay, so I need to save a little. I'm like, because most of us have no idea. We like have a paycheck, it goes in our bank account, and they're like, okay, I have money. I'm like, yeah, but you have bills that aren't like that are once a year, or you have vacations. I'm like, how do you know it? People know they're like, oh, I have money, I'm fine. I'm like, that is not sustainable.
And you talk about just the stress and just the understanding. And I know before we started recording, one of the things that you mentioned about were some of like the financial wellness that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there, and just
Yeah.
what are some of the reactions that you're seeing from people as you help them understand that?
Well, it's interesting because we hear all about wellness these days, right? You hear about mental health wellness. Companies bring in, people to do meditations and they do exercise classes and they have programs to get you discounts at the health club. Well, if you think about it, what are most people stressed about these days? Money. I mean, everybody's stressed about money, and money impacts your physical and mental health and your productivity at work. So I've been going in and doing workshops for companies, to just do some basic personal finance, like I said, like a net worth spending analysis, how the different types of buckets of savings, uh, credit, how the W-4 works, total comp, so they understand that it's not just the comp number that they're getting, healthcare benefits, or they're getting these benefits, and people have been fantastic. I mean, I did one for a medical group, and they have doctors that are quite wealthy, but don't manage their money well. And then they have people living quite paycheck to paycheck. And they were all they were like, oh, this was great. And we can make it, smaller things. We can do, I don't particularly care for on demand because I don't feel like people actually ever look at it. I think if you make the time, here's it at lunch, it's an hour, hour and a half, go in and watch it. People watch it. And if they get one thing out of it, or they call me, like, you in this day and age where everyone's leaving, it's a great way for companies to set themselves apart. I'm actually caring. I see you're stressed. Let me give you information that might help. Or maybe they can do that and then pay for a session with me to help do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's lots of ways to do that, but people have been like, wow, this is great. Because I mean, the people hiring me are stressed about money and they're stressed about their employees leaving. So, like, it's just a win win for everybody.
Mhm. And that's one of those things that I think is very interesting about, I would say, the work culture. And even as like I have family members that live in different countries, and they tell me about like kind of the work culture there. And one of the things I notice is, like you said, finance is one of the most stressful parts of our lives. But that's one of those like areas that people don't talk about in the workplace.
Well, you
But
think
it's
about
just
mental health as a stigma, money's a stigma. We don't talk about it. And I
mhm,
mean, I have college age kids, and my kids go to top high schools. They're really not taught personal finance. And they come out in the world unprepared to really deal with it. And so I'm really on this mission to just educate people. And that's what I do through LinkedIn every day. I mean, I'm amazed no one is doing what I'm doing on LinkedIn. And I have people are like, oh my God, I love your posts. I'm like, okay, I'm writing about taxes. They're like, no one ever taught me this. And I do the same post, like I'll repeat it every quarter. People are like, oh, this is great. I mean, because you have to watch it like a lot of, I mean, most people are not paying attention. I'm like, look, my goal with all of this is to just make people smart taxpayers, right? So it's to come and someone call me, hey, Lisa, I heard about this credit for solar panels. Does that apply to me? How does it work? Like, just to help you ask good questions. So if you have your own business, you can outsource your bookkeeping or your, but like, you have to understand what it means. And you have to know it because you have to make decisions throughout the year, right? Like, you can't just say, oh, and you can't just do your books at the end of the year because it's not about the tax return. It's about making a profitable business. You need your information. It's the same thing. It's an investment, right? Like having that information make decisions could save you more than whatever you're paying your bookkeeper or your CFO. And I love that there's fractional CFOs, that there's fractional, customer service, that there's all this stuff now. It's like, as a small business, you can get the help you need, and especially if you're a small business, you really need the help because you're not good at everything. So, like, and
Yeah.
people finally I think, are like realizing it, right? But because the type of business I have, I don't have a huge clientele, so like I don't need 5 million customers. I mean, like I have 100 and some customers, like that's fine. But I've had clients for 20 years. I mean, they love me. They're like, "Oh my god, I'm moving. Can I?" I'm like, "It's fine." And I had one year where I couldn't do stuff. I had some medical issues, and so someone else helped me. And they're like, "Well, my tax return was done, but their bedside manner really wasn't." Because that's the thing. Anyone can prepare your tax return. Interpreter tax can prepare your tax return, but do they explain it to you? Are they around? Can they help you with your nanny taxes? Can they help you quarterly figure out where you're at? Oh, I inherited this. What's it going to look like? I'm exercising my equity compensation. I mean, like, I deal with executives all the time. And then I work with their support people, their insurance agents, their CFOs, their bookkeepers, their investment advisors. A lot. We work a lot together because they're not looking at their statements, right? And so then there's surprises on the tax return. I'm like, you have to call me. And my clients are very good. I mean, they literally, and it's interesting because I'm sure you have this as well. Is you have to have the click. You have to have the fit. And so if clients fit with me, it's great. They feel comfortable calling me. And if not, that's fine. I'm not for everybody. And I don't need
Mhm.
everybody, which is great.
Awesome. I love that. And speaking of that, so if people are looking for you, where should they look for you online?
Well, so my website is just my name, www.lisaniser.com. And there's some information there about workshops and planning further down. So, in addition to the financial wellness workshops, I do have a workshop for entrepreneurs. So, if you start a business or thinking of starting a business, it's a 50-minute on demand video and then followed by a 1 hour one-on-one consultation. Because what I realized is most people don't even know what questions to ask me when they start. And the video lets you pause and replay because, all right, let's just be real. I can't listen to myself talk about taxes for an hour straight. Like it's boring. And so people really, really like that. So that's on there. And then also, like, if people just need help with something, I am available by the hour. I also do post almost every single day on LinkedIn. I don't post about taxes every day. We have fun Fridays to get to know each other. But I post a lot about taxes and people, they love it. I mean, like yesterday I did, or the other day I did a reminder about estimated taxes that are due. Apparently not all accountants send out reminders. I have no idea. Or, now you can buy Series I bonds and that, or, identity protection pins so that you have been, like, I try and do that. And if people are interested too, on the top of my website, you can sign up for my email list. So I send information out just when there's information sent. I'm not one of these that sends it every week or whatever. It's like if there's, when the stimulus payments come out, here's what to expect. Here's the advanced child tax credits. Here's how to opt out. Here's, Illinois is doing a rebate. Here's what's coming. Things like that. Because that way I'm like, I know I don't read everyone's newsletter every week. And so when it comes, I want people to really know that it's important on there. So I have lots of people through LinkedIn. And if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. I met through LinkedIn. And I'll tell you, you want to get good partners. It's been fantastic because now I do have tax professionals in other specialty areas that I didn't have before. And so it's been really fantastic for me because then I have someone to refer people to, or, you need help with your estate documents. You need an insurance attorney. I have someone for that, your accountant knows.
Awesome. I love it. Well, one final question before we wrap up. If you were talking to someone and you said, "Hey, I was on the Law and Finance show with Terrell Turner, and we talked about a lot of great things, but hey, here you're gonna listen to that episode. Here are two really big things I want you to pay attention to and take away from that conversation." What would your two big takeaways be?
Make time and seek out information if you are a law associate about how taxes and cash flow change when you make partner so that you can make a good informed decision before you have to decide that. I think that's probably one of the most important things to do. And then, like, honestly, I would say really consider investing in a tax advisor, not a tax preparer, because I think having that person help you look at your long term thing and having someone available to answer. I mean, I don't just answer tax questions, I answer questions about pretty much everything. Um, I just think that's an investment that people like deserve, to be honest. I mean, you work so hard for your money. We interact with money every single day, and we are not taught about it. And I love teaching it. So, I mean, my clients, I could triple my business if I want to, but like I want to have time to work with each client. And so finding the right person, not just taking your friend's recommendation, I think is really, really important.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being an amazing guest to come back onto the show to talk about this topic that is helping so many lawyers. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
If you're looking for ideas on how to manage and grow a profitable law firm, this Facebook group is perfect for you because every week we are featuring conversations with successful lawyers and businesses related to law firms on tips, ideas, and technology that are helping many people grow and manage a profitable law firm. So if you're looking for great tips and ideas, you definitely want to click the link below so you can join the conversation and be part of the Law Firms and Finance Facebook group.